I barely recognized the place when I returned home. The chipped paint of my childhood was now a faded sepia, the lawn all but swallowed by weeds. I stood at the threshold of a house that once brimmed with laughter and warmth, now suffocated under the weight of my family's ridicule. They had deemed my obsession with vermin intelligence mapping a disgrace, a mark of madness. "You'll lose your mind, Ben," they'd said, their laughter echoing in the corners of my memory. "You're going to disgrace us." My hands trembled as I adjusted the strap of my worn satchel, filled not with clothes, but with the remnants of my relentless pursuit. I clutched my notebook, the pages filled with sketches of nests, cryptic symbols, and the intricate web of rat behavior that no one else could decipher. I was a pest pattern cryptographer, a title heavy with mockery in the past. Now one I wore like a badge of dark honor, after peeling back the veil of ignorance to expose the horrors hiding in the city's underbelly. As I pushed the front door open, it groaned, just like my memories. The air inside was stale, thick with unspoken words, and I could feel the weight of their disbelief pressing down on me like a shroud. They were gathered in the living room, the flickering light of the television casting shadows across their faces. My mother's eyes widened, a portrait of disbelief. My father's brows knitted together with concern. My sister's expression was a mix of pity and distaste. "Ben!" My mother's voice was sharp, cutting through the tension. "What are you doing here?" "I've come to share my findings," I replied, my voice steady but tinged with something darker, a whisper of impending dread. "You need to understand." "What a waste of time this is," my father interjected, dismissively waving his hand. "You're still chasing shadows, aren't you?" I exhaled, my heart pounding against my ribs like a caged beast desperate for freedom. I had spent years mapping their secret society, those wretched, clever creatures that scuttled beneath the surface, whispering secrets only I could hear. "You need to listen. I've seen things you won't believe." "Enough with your nonsense," my sister scoffed, crossing her arms defiantly. "You should be ashamed." I took a step forward, forcing the weight of my revelations into the space between us. "You think I'm mad? You think this is just some delusion? I've studied these vermin for years. They're organized. They have their own." A sharp scrabbling noise interrupted me, echoing from the kitchen. It was subtle at first, like the sound of nails on wood, but their expressions twisted from mockery to fear, as if a fog of realization had begun to settle upon them. "It's just the wind," my father said, but his voice trembled, betraying his resolve. The noise grew louder, more insistent, until suddenly the shadows around me began to writhe. I reached into my satchel and pulled out a handful of my collected symbols etched on small pieces of wood, remnants of nests I'd uncovered in abandoned buildings. "These are markers," I said, breathless. "They let the others know where to find sustenance, where to gather." In that moment, the kitchen door swung open, and a swarm of rats poured into the room, their eyes glinting like obsidian. They moved in unison, as if choreographed by some dark, unseen conductor. I could barely hear the gasps of my family over the pulse of my own heartbeat. "No! Get them out!" my mother screamed, scrambling onto the couch. The rats climbed over one another, darting toward the coffee table where I'd laid my symbols. They paused, circling around them, as if sensing the very essence of the knowledge I had uncovered. "Stop!" I shouted, but my voice was drowned in their frantic chattering, a language I had spent years deciphering. I could see it now, their intelligence, their plan, how they communicated with one another, how they organized their nests, how they thrived in the shadows while we remained blind to their existence. "Ben, this is insane!" my sister cried, her face pale with horror. The unraveling of their dismissal had come full circle, and in that moment they were confronted not just by the vermin, but by the reality I had unearthed. My family had mocked what they couldn't understand, and now the repercussions of their disbelief were scurrying right before their eyes. "Let them be!" my father yelled, clutching his wife as they huddled together, fear radiating from them in waves. But the rats were undeterred, weaving through the furniture as the symbols pulsed with an otherworldly glow. I felt the knowledge surging through me, the carefully collected data becoming a living, breathing entity. These were not mere pests. They were a society, a force, something ancient and powerful that we had overlooked. As the chaos reached its peak, the kitchen door slammed shut behind the last of the swarm, isolating us in the living room, charged with a palpable fear. I stood transfixed, the symbols before me burning with an eerie light, illuminating the shadowed corners where my family once hid their mocking laughter. I had transcended their disbelief, and yet, as the reality of my findings circled back on them, I felt nothing but a chilling emptiness. With the rats now huddled around the symbol, finally the swell of rats receded, retreating back into the shadows, leaving behind only the faint echoes of their existence. My family was left shaken, the laughter that once rang through the house replaced by an oppressive silence. I turned to leave, their shocked faces reflecting back at me like fragments of a shattered mirror. I had survived what they could not fathom. While I was no longer a disgrace, I was now a living testament to the horrors they had brushed aside. "Ben, my mother began, but I raised my hand, the shadows swirling behind me like a crown forged in darkness. "Some truths," I said, my voice carrying the weight of all I had endured, "are better left unspoken." And with that, I stepped into the night, the chill of vindication solidifying into a haunting echo of what once was. A family that no longer mocked, but now trembled at the reality of my revelations. Forever haunted by the dark knowledge I had brought home.